Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Paz. With me today, very special guest, formerly known as Bull Dempsey in NXT. He is, of course, the last of a dying breed, Mr. Bull James. Bull, welcome back to the two-man power trip. How you doing?
Good, man. It's great to see you again. We were just talking off camera, but it's good to reconnect with you. You were always a very good guy to me, and I love what you guys are doing. So I'm happy to be back.
Thank you, thank you. And it's funny with you and a lot of wrestlers. It's like, do they remember certain matches and stuff they have, and do the fans remember when a few years ago when you wrestled Kevin Thorne? I don't know if you remember this
Yeah.
outside.
Yep.
Oh my God, I can't forget. I was like, that was great because you didn't quite know what to expect. I know Thorne, obviously, he can be a little stiff and stuff. It's like, let's see, Bull's going to give it back to him. But man, that match, you guys were you went all over the place. That was
He,
awesome.
he actually owns a potato farm. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I believe it. Yeah,
In the
I
in
just
the
remember that. I was like,
in
man,
the wild fields of
stiff.
Indianapolis.
Yeah,
He has a
stiff
potato.
bastard.
That was so much fun, man. I remember going down that slide, and everybody was like, "You guys have to get back in the ring." Everybody's pissed at you. We're like, "All right, sorry."
That's one of those paid shows, right? Where it's somebody else's place, and you guys got to be careful. Like one of those things.
I'm not sure how it was all worked out. I think I think it was just a rented spot, but it's the boys will be the boys sometimes, and if you tell them not to do something, sometimes guys just it's a challenge, So
Yeah, didn't expect to see two huge guys going down a slide and getting thrown into a fence. I mean, it was awesome.
but hey, the people loved it, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, that was the best match of the night by far. Everyone was
Oh,
nuts for that match. Yeah, that
thank
was great. So, what's going on with you? What's going on in your world?
just getting kind of breaking back into everything after COVID. Um, Doing some TV production stuff with some cable shows. I can't really get into it because of non-disclosure agreements and everything, but it's kept me busy throughout the pandemic and kept my bills paid. So I'm grateful for that. And just getting back in the ring. I just had a match with Outlaw Wrestling in Queens the other day, back at ISPW, which I'm glad has started back up. Was one of my favorite places to work before WWE, and I'm just glad to see Tommy's back running again, and just opening the schedule back up and just getting back in the swing of things. I've missed the fans, and I've missed being in a wrestling ring, so it's really exciting.
ISPW, of course, 325 Totowa, New Jersey. That's going to be a good one. Of course,
There.
ISPWwrestling.com for all ticket information. But you and HC Loke are going to go
Cheers
at
to
it.
ISPW.
Yes, good call. And HC Loke, right? That's the match
Yes.
signed up for you that night. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Loke for years and years. Actually, the first time we got to know each other was at the last uh, the last incarnation of ISPW, which was a lot of shows in Freehold, New Jersey. And Loke was always good to me, and but I'm not going to be so good to him on the 25th because I'm on a bit of a losing streak, and I want to end that.
A lot of guys have told me ISPW kind of, the resurgence has gave them new life and new love for the business. I love hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the locker room is amazing. Tommy knows what he's doing, Tommy Fierro. And between the Wrestling Collector Store and ISPW and his virtual signings, like he's killing it right now. So to be running shows while his social media pages are so popular, it's just kind of working hand in hand, and it's really really cool to be a part of.
Feels like there's so much going on with him, though, right? I mean, he's so busy with all that other stuff. Now he's
Oh
doing a
yeah,
musical too, right? Isn't he doing a Broadway show?
yeah, and then there's that on the horizon as well. But Tommy was one of the first promoters outside of ECPW where I trained in Jersey, like to give me a shot. Um, when I was 18, 17, 18 years old. So Tommy and I go back a long way, and there's a lot of history there. And it's kind of cool to be able to come full circle, especially after the pandemic. And I think, emotions are running high, and people are kind of sentimental about things. It's like the perfect story. So it's really great to be a part of again.
I remember going to his conventions like 20 years ago when he was like dominating the convention scene. So I've
Yeah,
known him for quite a while. Yeah.
yeah. No, he's always done great and drawn a great crowd. And it's with that experience, and then with the experience he got in the business world before the pandemic hit. I mean, he's really on a roll right now. And like I said, it's so cool to be a part of it. And I'm just happy for him, and I'm happy for all the guys and girls getting work through him. It's good for everybody. It's good for the fans. It's good for the wrestlers. It's good for the business.
I saw pictures, obviously, from the last show that they had, sold out, like busy. The crowd seemed into it. It's kind of old school in a certain sense.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You know, it's one of those things where Tommy's smart and he'll give a little bit for everybody. You know, there's a match there that will draw a different type of fan in, like throughout the card. You know, so you'll have some old school matches, you'll have some legends, you'll have like some really fast paced matches, you'll have some women's matches. He really spreads things out and makes it different for the audience, and it's really really cool.
When you did get it, first get into the business, and you started, it was with Gino Caruso. That's like the original trainer.
I started at Gino's school. He was training a little bit, um, but I was there 4 days a week, and so he would, I'd go in there on a Monday afternoon, and if he had to like run errands, he would just let me roll around by myself. He was really really giving to me in that aspect. But at the time, as much as he was training people, he also wasn't, because there was a lot of shows he was running. There was a lot going on, but I got fortunate because Kodiak Bear was there, and he started running some classes. And then Judas Young came back and was rehabbing a knee injury, and so he used to roll around with me. And then Danny Inferno moved back from Deep South after he got released, and he started helping me out and really took me under his wing. And then from there, it was Crowbar and Danny Doring and Nunzio, and like it just kind of snowballed into like all these guys starting to help mold me, and it was really really cool, and I'm really grateful for all of them.
And it's awesome that they're all pretty much a big part of ISPW, Crowbar enduring. I mean, it's pretty good. And
Absolutely.
Nunzio.
Like I said, man, it's such a full circle thing for me. That's why it's so special. So,
When you are training and you are coming along, what is like your goal, like in wrestling? Was it to make it WWE? Was that like the long goal, or not so much? You just wanted to be a wrestler.
I mean, I just wanted to be a wrestler first and foremost. But for me, it was always WWE. It was, I'm going to make a living doing this, and I'm going to support my loved ones through this. And there's no way around that. That's what I'm going to do. Um, Obviously, just being in the business is special. And if I would have just gotten that, I'd probably still be just as happy. Like don't get me wrong, but that was always the goal. Is if you're gonna get into something, especially something that's so taxing on your body, taxing on relationships, taxing on your mental health, you should probably want to go as far as you can. And so that's how I always kind of looked at it.
How do you deal with stuff like that though? Like for the mental health and for like relaxation or even injuries, how do you kind of handle that?
I mean, everybody's different, and that's why I think that we need to start having the mental health conversations. Chris Nowinski does a great job, but a lot of times that's after people are already gone, because you can't
Yeah,
really
true.
study somebody's brain while they're still here. Maybe they can now. I don't know. It's been a minute since I've really looked into it, but um, I know Braun Strowman, Adam Scher, he just started a mental health app. I know there's BetterHelp. Obviously, there's a lot of apps and stuff out there that are pretty affordable, and it just helps to talk to somebody.
For sure. Is it very hard on the road? Because sometimes you're alone not most of the time, but could be a good chunk. Is it hard being alone and being on the road and traveling and, you'd be a little lonely out there?
Sure. And I mean, I have a therapist that I talk to, a couple times a month, and he's awesome. Um, I wish I would have had him when I was under contract, to be honest with you. But it wasn't something that I ever felt I needed. Uh, I was always, and and to this day, I'm still pretty level headed. But I feel like, especially during a pandemic and people are dying, I'd rather be proactive about it and be preemptive than fall into like a rut and be depressed and oh my god this is terrible, and then like it just starts to dwindle. Um, so I made that choice, and it's been awesome. And again, I wish I had made that choice when I was there. But yeah, the grind eats you up. It does, and it's one of those things though that we know what we signed up for. So to act surprised that the grind
Mm.
is going to eat you up, you got to be able to see it coming.
Is it like a teletherapy thing? Do you like call them or like Zoom
Yeah,
or
you could do
whatever?
like this, like video chat or text or call. So it's pretty cool.
See, that's great because even if you're, I don't know, in a hotel or traveling, you could still talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a hotel now talking to you, and it's kind of the
Yeah.
same setup, so
Yeah.
it makes it super simple. So, no, it's great.
I feel like maybe that's something that could be included for wrestlers, maybe in their contract or something going forward, like opportunity to have that kind of
I
treatment.
mean, look, WWE does a lot for everybody down there, and I'm sure that on the horizon, like there will be a couple of sports psychiatrists or whatever in there. I would not be surprised.
So with you, and like as you're coming along, is Taz like a part of the training, or when does
Yep.
Taz like kind of come into your life?
So first it was Matt Bourne. Uh,
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay.
yeah, Matt had taken me under his wing and changed up a lot of the stuff I was doing in the ring. And then Taz opened his finishing school, and I applied. And it was supposed to be for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then like 2 sessions a week. But at the end of it, he had taken such a liking to me. He said, "I want you to come back for every group that comes in, every 6 week or 8 week group that comes in." He goes, "I want you to be here and be like the example." And he goes, "I won't charge you a dime. I just want you to be here." And I was like, "Yeah, obviously, sign me up. I'm in." Um, and then he turned him in between him and Matt Bourne. I really started being a more serious wrestler. Whereas before, like I was doing a lot of gimmick stuff, and I was doing the baby gimmick and all that kind of thing. Like, um, so it really kind of did a total 180 for me in terms of character and how I was like portraying myself to people.
How is Taz like as a trainer? And
Oh,
because
he's awesome.
the perception is he could be pretty tough. You know what I mean? He could be
Yeah,
a hard guy.
no, he can, but him and I, we're both Brooklyn kids. We both grew up in Brooklyn. We both grew up tough. Um, we both grew up fighting. So I mean, there's a respect there that goes deeper than wrestling. Um, and yeah, he was always very, very giving to me. I mean, to this day, he really, really is the man. But so I've been so fortunate because everybody that has taken time to help me has always been so selfless with me, and it really is. It's humbling when I think about it, and I don't think about it enough. Um, Obviously, with Scott Hall passing away, that kind of hit me because I started thinking about how big of a supporter he was of mine, and I'm jumping a little ahead here in our discussion, but it kind of made me rethink how grateful I am for all the guys that came before me that have helped me so much over the years.
Now, when did you meet Scott Hall? Obviously, who just passed away. When did you meet Scott?
I mean, we had met in passing on the Indies, but I never really like got to talk to him. Um, but then when I was in NXT, he came down to guest coach, and I went up to say hi to him, and he's like, "Hey, man, you're my favorite guy on the show." And I'm like, "All right, who told you to say that to mess with
Yeah.
me?" Like I thought he was ribbing me. I did.
Yeah.
When you're in that bubble and there's so many talented people, like a lot of people don't have an ego. They're not there like I'm the best one here. You're just trying to do your best to make the whole product better. And for him to say that, I was like looking around, waiting for somebody to start laughing. And he didn't. And instead, he said, he goes, "They got some kid driving me around this weekend, but I'm going to tell them I'm riding with you." I was like, "Okay, like I'm not going to say no."
Right.
Um, and that was it, man. Like we rode together that whole weekend. He was in my car, and we were just going like eating and being late to shows, and then I was getting taken off shows, and then he was like, "Screw this, I'm not staying here. If you're not working, this is stupid." And it was like a whole weekend of shenanigans that I hadn't had since I was on the Indies, and it kind of gave me that mindset of like, stop treating this so serious. It's like obviously it's a serious thing, but stop caring in a sense of just let loose and have fun, and don't let all this side nonsense kind of like get in your head and make you distract you from the ultimate goal, which is to have fun and make money. You know.
Man, Hall is great. I worked with him like 4 times, I think it was. He's just so cool. We literally had
Yeah.
spent like a whole full day, like almost like 24 hours together because it was a signing. Then we had to drive someplace late at night. This place, nothing nefarious. He had a booking at a strip club of all places, which
Mm-hmm.
was crazy. But we drove all night to get there, and then of course he's booked at like I think it was like midnight to 2 or 3 in the morning. Then they had to drive him all the way back. So I spent all day and night with him. Didn't drink at all. He goes, bro. He's like, 'cause obviously this was later in his life, and obviously he got cleaner. I mean, this is like
Right.
3 or 4 years ago, but he was basically gave me like life lessons along the way.
Oh
There
yeah.
was 2 really nice hotels they put him in the real expensive one, but they're on the same street. He's like, I told these guys, why would you book me there? You could have saved $200. Book me here. It's on the same street. They're both nice. So like his thought process was just even for that was like great. I
Yeah.
loved him.
No, he was absolutely a genius. And again, just another guy that I'm fortunate enough to have kind of everything aligned, and we crossed paths when we did. Um, just what a guy, and a huge loss for the business. Absolutely.
Man, one of the best. They always say game changers. He legit game changer in wrestling.
Absolutely.
What did you think about riding in that car with him? I mean, that's awesome. Did
Oh
you
man,
learn a lot?
it was great. It was, it's a dream come true for a kid that grew up on wrestling, and especially grew up in New York on WWF and going to the Garden. I mean, but I was also, there's that side of you that's still a fan, but then there's a side of you that's like, okay, this is cool. Now ask him questions and bother him and learn. And I did a lot of learning that day, and it's just, open your eyes and your ears and shut your mouth.
What was some advice that he gave you?
People can sign up to get trained by me to hear that. I'm not going to share
Okay.
that. No,
Okay.
no. It was just a lot of save your money. Always help the younger guys. And be willing to evolve, but also don't abandon what got you to the dance. A lot of the bigger guys at that time were starting to do a lot of cruiserweight stuff, and he was like, just keep kicking ass and let those guys kill their bodies. People want to see people beat each other up. They don't care about the flips and all that. So don't start trying to do it. You're just going to get hurt. So you got something good, you got to run with it. Because if you're getting a reaction doing that, you're doing it right. So, and I always that always stuck with me.
I feel like he has like so much or had so much knowledge to give, and he was giving it to a lot of the young guys. I that was one thing.
Yeah.
Some guys that are great, they just don't give it back. He seemed like he gave it back tenfold.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. He was, again, one of those guys that was special in and out of the ring.
He's so funny too. Like some of the stories, people would say, like he would say, "I'm kicking out of your finisher" and stuff. Like he would just kind of do stuff to razz you and kind of keep it light, but see how you would react. He was like not testing you, but almost like testing you, see how you react.
It's not even. I think he just would walk into a room and know that everybody was so uptight and like, "Oh, hello, sir, nice to meet you."
Right.
And he would "Oh, how are you, sir?" And he'd be like, "Better than you." And it was like such a dick thing, but it was said in such a great way that like you had no choice but to laugh.
Yep.
And then it would be like some unassuming guy, like I said, that was uptight, and he would hear that and be like, "Oh, okay, yes, sir, nice to meet you." And it's like, dude, calm down. He's messing with you. It's okay. And it's again one of those lessons of like, don't get too comfortable, but also like don't be so uptight that you take things too serious.
Yep. And I feel like that's why him and Goldberg had a little bit of a riff, because Goldberg was very ultra serious and he was light and obviously would poke fun. And he's a big guy too. He's not going to back down if somebody's trying to be tough back with him. So I don't know. I guess it was just oil and water. Those two just didn't mix.
I guess. I mean, I wasn't there, and I never really talked to Scott about it, so I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I would assume you're right.
So with Taz, just going back to him and finishing school, and just kind of rewind just for a minute, when you're with Taz and stuff, do you like just not take moves, but what do you kind of take from him? Because it's finishing school. So like, what are you taking with him that's like, okay, now I'm definitely ready to be a professional wrestler, like on a bigger scale?
Well, we would just a lot of promo work, a lot of matches, and it was all guys with experience, so we would be out working on the weekends, and then come back with copies of our matches. So like then he would sit there and critique the matches, and then we'd go out the next weekend and try to do stuff that we talked about all week. And it was a lot of him coaching us up, while we were actively working indies, which you don't, a lot of times you don't get unless you're at like a reputable school. So it was really cool. He really, really took his time and helped. And with anything else, people slip through the cracks that shouldn't be there, and he tried his best to weed them out. But it was overall just a great experience for, I think, everybody involved. I think everybody got something out of being there.
With Matt Bourne, where do you meet him? Because I always thought he was like a West Coast guy. Like, where do you meet Matt Bourne?
He had moved to New Jersey and actually started working for ISPW. And his first match for Tommy was with me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And we just hit it off, and we went and had the match, and we didn't talk about anything. And after the match, he was like, "Kid, you're great. You're staying at my house tonight." I was, okay, cool. Because I'm gonna pick anybody's brain that I can. You know,
Right.
I want to learn. I still am, but I was just so hungry to make it somewhere and get knowledge and get better and like be able to talk to the people that a lot of guys are afraid to talk to, and just get their opinions on things and see how they view the business and see how they see things. I was always fascinated by that. And so I got to Matt's place, and he popped in a Bruiser Brody DVD and threw down a bottle of Crown. He said, "We're finishing this tonight." I said, "Okay." And we sat there and had a bunch of drinks and watched Brody, and I just listened to him talk for hours.
Is that when you started becoming like a big Brody fan, or did you know about Brody
I mean,
pre?
I knew about Brody, and I loved him, but I didn't realize Matt was really the one that started telling me a lot of the behind the scenes stuff about Brody and how he truly was one of the boys and how important it is to look out for each other. Um, and so once I kind of got that like that side of it, and saw that side of him, that's what really sold me on like, this guy's awesome. This is the guy. You know, him and Terry Funk, I think, top, at least top five. I mean, if not top two.
With Brody and stuff, did you emulate after that? Start emulating him because it seems like you got some stuff from him. You're not copying, but
Well,
you take.
I took the chain. I
Yep.
started using the chain. What I wanted to do was make it like I was king of the dog collar match, because nobody really does dog collar matches anymore. And so the chain would kind of help be a reminder of that in the matches I was in that weren't dog collar matches.
Right.
But it's tough when you have indies that don't do storylines or don't have TV, So but I still kept the chains because I thought they looked cool, and I thought that nobody else was doing it at the time that I knew of. And yeah, that's kind of just where it came from.
Matt Bourne, was it like knowledgeable? Yes, and like all this other stuff. But did you know of Matt and the Doink character and his history in the business? Did you
Oh,
know
I mean,
all
yeah.
that going in? Okay.
I mean, yeah. Anybody who grew up and and tells you that they weren't scared of the original Doink, I'd say is full of shit. So yeah, yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I thought he was pretty great, the original Doink. Pretty
Oh,
great
you
though.
froze.
Are you still there? You hear me?
You're frozen. You froze. Uh-oh. Now, yep, you're good.
Okay. I was gonna
Yeah,
say I
technical
can I
difficulty.
yeah, no problem there. Yeah, it always happens. But I was gonna say I kind of like the original Doink though.
Oh, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. He was so good in the ring, and what he put into that character, I mean, it just bled through every time he was on screen.
It was so different though because cartoony WWE, but you got this like psycho clown who could actually like work and move and wrestle.
Yep.
But it's like what is this guy all about? It was very confusing as a young fan. It's like what is this guy all about? He's jokey and then he's like maniacal. It's awesome character.
Yeah. Yeah, he was amazing.
When you got with him and you're training with him and you're learning stuff from him, like you said, you're drinking Crown with him, you're hanging out with him and stuff.
Mhm.
What's like some other advice he's giving you for yourself and your character? Is it just like the Brody stuff, or is he telling you other stuff like, "Hey, you need to tweak this, you need to do that"? Like, how is he helping you?
It was a little of both. And he definitely passed on a lot of the stuff that Brody had taught him or that he learned being around his dad or around Moondog Maine, or around Pat Patterson as a kid. Moondog Maine and Pat Patterson and Tony Bourne would ride from Portland to San Francisco and back, and Matt would be in the car as a kid. And so he literally grew up in the business on the road, and you don't really get that a lot anymore. So he had all this knowledge from all these different eras, and it was a lot. He was an encyclopedia of what to do and what not to do and what makes sense and what doesn't.
Almost undervalued or underappreciated a little bit. I feel like Matt Bourne in the
100%.
business.
100%.
When you finish up with him, is it just like Taz is next, and then it's off to NXT, or like what happens in between?
No, I didn't like finish up with Matt. We were just always very close, even when I was training with Taz. And then Matt would call Taz and like get updates about me,
Oh, okay.
like because Matt and I just were friends. You know, he was really like an uncle to me. If I can explain the relationship, you know, he was like the cool uncle, and took me on the road with him and showed me a lot of stuff and taught me a lot of things. And I just he saw wrestling, saw the entire industry so differently than everybody else in very much a Brody type of way, and just made me feel okay to be different and okay to treat it like it was realer than it is. And you know, because it was a lot of people weren't taking it serious anymore, and he was very like, if you do, it's going to make you stand out, and it did, because I did
Yeah.
take it serious and I treated it as though it was real. You know, and I think that's what people don't understand, and this will get me on a whole rant, so I'm not going to get too into it. But when I hear people now go, "Oh, wrestling is art," I disagree wholeheartedly. In my opinion, wrestling's a science because it's based around human psychology, which is a science. There's an art form to wrestling, which is to make it look like you're killing the person without touching them, so that you can work 300 plus days a year and earn a living and feed your family. That's the art form of wrestling. A lot of people, I'm not saying everyone who says wrestling is art is like this, because it's not. A lot of very talented guys believe that. I believe the opposite. I'm cut from a different cloth. And a lot of the people that hear about the art form of wrestling kind of twist it to fit themselves because they can't do it. And they're just like, oh, well, it's art, it's subjective. Well, maybe, but I just disagree. It's just my opinion.
I always think that when they say like, "Yo, this guy thinks this match was great and wasn't," I'm like, it's subjective to a point. Like you could tell the guys who can work and can't work, and you could tell the guys that are literally
Right.
killing themselves for like a pop or whatever
Yeah.
that doesn't need to happen, doesn't need to be there. That it's almost just like, okay, they're doing that to get some sort of reaction because they can't really work. You know?
Yeah. And I've told this to any person I've ever trained. There's not one right way to do it. You know, I could have my own way of doing it. And, you know, all the trainers at NXT could have their own way of doing it. And all those ways may be right, but we can all agree when it's bad. So we can disagree on what's right, what's wrong, or what's best, or what may work better, but all of it is still good if it's done right. But when we see something bad, every single one of us looks at each other and goes, whoa, that was the shits. So there's definitely a wrong way to do it, but there's
Yeah.
no one definite right.
It's funny too because I was watching an old school match and you could tell that it wasn't like a screw up or anything, but there was something there that didn't maybe go right or something, but you can't really notice it because they're so quick and they're calling in the ring and boom, they change directions and they go in a different and the crowd is still really into it. So watching something not that long ago, let's just say on TV, and you could tell
Mm-hmm.
they were screwing up the spots and they screwed something up, so they went back and they started doing it again. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
you
man.
could tell guys calling the ring or guys that know how to wrestle, guys are just remembering spots.
Well, that's the thing, right? When you sit in the back and just remember, you're leaving no room for the most important part, and that's the audience.
Yep.
So if I rehearse all this shit in my head and I'm like, all right, I remember A, B, C, D. Okay, cool, I got it. I think I got it. Hey, let's go over it again. And you spend all day doing that. And then the crowd that paid money to sit every 18 inches doesn't react. And you go, oh, maybe they didn't get it. Let's do it again. No, it just didn't work. And you have to be able to adapt. But if you're not sitting there and watching them the whole night and be like, okay, they're reacting really well to this kind of stuff, maybe we should change it up. That's on you. You're not taking pride in what you're doing. You're just going, well, we got their money. I'm going to give them what I give them. And that's bad business. That doesn't grow a fan base. That doesn't keep people coming back.
Why do you think that shift happened? Like, what changed in wrestling that so many guys went to like calling the ring and working, and then now it's like memorizing stuff and high spots. What changed, do you think, and when do you think that changed?
I don't know. And I'm not so sure that was the big shift that kind of ruined it, because if you're good enough and you know where your reactions are, you can kind of plan it out. You just have to be good enough to go somewhere else if it goes wrong, you know?
Right.
So I don't know if that was the big shift. I think society as a whole kind of made a shift around like 2016 or late 2015. Um, Not then specifically, but just that was when I came back on the Indies, was 2016. And the young guys that I would run into, not all, just there was a select few that I was like, man, if you would have pulled this or talked like this when I was coming in, if you were coming up with me, guys would have beat your ass and kicked you out of the business. And I'm not condoning like beating somebody up. I'm just saying like people have been given way more leeway to express really shitty opinions than they should be
Right.
because they don't know what they're talking about. And they'll talk like they've been everywhere in the world and they've been, within a 40-mile radius for 3 years and they think they know something. You might know a little bit, but you don't know what guys who have been there know. And so it goes back to what I said before. The reason all the people that helped me is because I shut my mouth and kept my eyes and ears open. And I don't know if it's just, a societal thing or I was just raised differently or grew up in a different environment. I don't know what it is. But it was just something that really struck me as odd, where I was like, wow, these guys really think that their shit don't stink and they're not really good.
Strange. It's like you're like almost like old school and they're like new school, but it's, you know what I mean? But there shouldn't be that separation there.
But there shouldn't be, because I've worked with a lot of new school guys and the styles gel really well when you both work together. It's great. It's fun. And people like it and it gets reactions. And I don't know. And I don't want to make it like, oh, the kids nowadays. It's not that. It was just like a select few, but they stuck out so much like sore thumbs where I was like, what is going on here? And I don't know if it was just a lack of locker room policing because people are afraid that if I check somebody, they're going to run on Twitter and cancel me or whatever. I don't know if it's just that fear, but I mean, at some point, the wheel goes around. So at some point, it's going to go back around to that, and there's going to be a lot of guys that aren't going to be able to hang because they're going to go, where'd all these men come from? It's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, again, just my opinion, just something that I noticed. And I don't know where the big shift was, but wrestling's always evolving. Look at Terry Funk and how he wrestled in '86 compared to what he was doing in '96.
True.
Times change, but the wheel eventually comes back around. And I think you're seeing that now with NXT.
For sure. It seemed like for a while they went with a lot of the smaller indie guys, and now they're kind of rewinding it back. And you got the Braun Breakers and Grayson Waller. Is not a big guy, but he's bigger.
Right.
Former rugby player, whatever. I mean, he's a former big athlete.
Yeah.
Eli Drake. I mean, there's some bigger guys that are in NXT now for sure.
Absolutely. And you could kind of see from right around the time that I got released until this past year, it was like the roster was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, not in terms of how many people were there, but just in terms of size and who they were signing. And, anybody that knows anything about Vince McMahon, eventually he's going to wake up one day and goes, why is everybody so small?
Yes.
So, and I had made mention of that just to like a couple buddies in like 2015, maybe. I said, if they keep going this route, one day he's going to wake up pissed off and nobody's going to know what to do. And it seems like one day he woke up really pissed off and nobody knew what to do. And everything changed. So but again, that's just the circle coming back around. And it'll go back to, they had cruiserweights in the early 2000s and the mid 2000s, right? And then it went back to the bigger guys, and then it went back to the cruiserweights, and then it went back to it's just the circle goes around. It doesn't change.
I guess the story goes Vince visited the Performance Center and stuff, I guess a year ago or so, and then he probably came back, and then all these changes happened. So exactly what you just said. What he said, like, "Where's all the big guys?" You know what I mean? Like, I like Steiner's kids here, kid here. Where's all the other big guys? Like, he definitely thought that.
And then, but maybe it's. And it's not that those little guys can't draw money. I've seen it 1,000 times. They can. There's guys that are really, really talented. But look at how big Braun Breaker blew up when they just kind of put a singlet on him and gave him some TV time, and he had a personality.
Yep.
And look how quick everybody just went like a magnet and was like, this guy's awesome.
Yep.
I did. but it's because we haven't seen that in so long. And I think it's just one of those things that they always say this about like when guys would leave a territory, you have to go away to come back. So you can't have a big comeback angle if you don't go away first. And
Yep.
so it's the same thing, the smaller guys and the cruiserweights and the really fast paced guys are some of my favorites to watch. I mean, I watched Jody Fleisch against Johnny Storm when I was on a show in the UK, and I felt like a little kid watching Ring of Honor DVDs. And they were
Oh
still
yeah.
doing the same stuff, and I was like, "This
Yeah.
is amazing." I mean, Jody is 10 times the size now that he was then, but what I'm saying is those guys are so entertaining, and a lot of them can be so entertaining. But if you see it every single time, eventually you're going to want to see two big dudes go and beat each other's asses. So when you do get that, the place goes nuts or the internet goes nuts, and because they get something they haven't seen in a while. So now the cruiserweights have a chance to kind of go away for a little bit, and then things will slow down because there'll be bigger guys working. To them, when the next batch of guys comes along that's fast paced and boom, 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 people are going to be like, "Oh my God, this is so exciting! I've never seen this before." It's like
True.
you just forgot about it.
Very true. I just think that I like WCW in the '90s. Like they had a little bit of everything. Like
Yep.
the nice smorgasbord of talent, like all over, like cruiserweights, main event guys, big guys. Like they had it all. I feel like for a while there was like everybody's small and kind of the same size, all doing cruiserweight stuff. It's like, where's the bangers and where's like the big guys? Because like you said, Vince is definitely a big man guy. Hogan, Austin is no small man. Rock is no small man. Cena, Lesnar, Reigns.
Well,
I
and
mean,
hey,
that seems like his guys.
that diversity in WCW, as a proud New Yorker, you can attribute that to ECW. Thank you very much. Not that
Oh,
I had anything to do with ECW, but just as that pride, we know what Eric did. Rated a
and
whole
then
roster.
you got the Halls and Nashes, the Hogans, like
Yeah, yeah, it's
the big
great.
guys too. Yeah,
Yeah,
very good.
it's awesome.
The buffet, if you will.
Absolutely, and I mean, I think that's a tribute to Kevin Sullivan, who was writing a lot of that TV, and Terry Taylor, who was writing a lot of that TV, because a lot of those smaller guys got opportunities because of those two that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
That's true. And it's funny. I do a show with Sullivan. I talk to him all the time, and he was saying that a lot of the guys were
I love
saying to him, "He's so great." Like Nash and Hall
such
and
a
stuff.
good guy.
They would say to him like, "Oh, this guy's too small. That guy's too small." And then he would look at him. He goes, "I'm their size." So you're saying I'm too small? So they like kind of warm him up a little bit. Like Sid had said something to him about Benoit. I don't want to job to Benoit. He's too small or something. And he goes, we're the same size. Me and Benoit are the same size. So Sid was kind of like awkward. Like,
Yeah.
I guess I'll do it. Yeah.
Kevin's awesome, man. I love him.
He's
He's
so funny.
so smart and so
Yep.
so giving. Um, I wrestled him on a Frank Goodman show, uh, maybe like 6 months before the pandemic, and he gave me his number afterwards. He goes, "Kid, whatever you need." And he was again another one of those guys that I just came into contact with, and because we knew the same people, like he found out Matt trained me and Taz trained me, and they have their history, and it kind of linked us together, and he's always been so responsive and cool when it comes to me asking him for advice. So I have the utmost respect and love in the world for Kevin Sullivan.
And he was telling me something about when he worked with Dusty, he kind of stole a little bit from the Sheik and Bobo
Mhm.
Brazil. The
Yeah.
small guy, if you're the heel, don't sell, you look bigger. Big guy selling looks small. You guys are on an even playing field, so the crowd buys the heels. Like, never even thought about it, but like that's true because Dusty is a lot bigger than Kevin. So I was like,
Yep.
yeah, he's like, and everyone thought I was going to kill him. So I was like, that is so interesting. Like,
Yep.
psychology.
Yeah. It's just simple. It's just showing the people subconsciously the levels. Like if I'm up and this guy's bent over and down hurt, I'm clearly in control. And if that guy that's bent over and hurt is the babyface, I'm a fan who hopefully is invested in the babyface. I don't want to see the babyface down and being beat up, so I'm going to cheer or boo the heel, or cheer for a comeback.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's Kevin's so smart, and he's definitely an inspiration of mine.
It's so funny. We were talking like way when we first started about you and Kevin Thorne in that match. thinking about that. It's like everybody else is kind of wrestling, not cruiserweight style, but like a different style. And then you got these two big guys just beating the crap at each other, and the crowd pops bigger than ever. So it go kind of even talking about that before. It goes back to wow, the crowd does still look for that kind of two guys just beating the hell out of each other kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, they absolutely do, and especially on a card of smaller guys, it makes it that much easier to get that reaction.
Yep.
It definitely helps. Put it that way. But no, I mean, and Kevin's a pro. He's been around a long time, and as much as everybody ribs him about being stiff and whatever, it's just fun because it's Kevin. Like we all get a kick out of it. But hey, I'd rather him stiff me and the crowd react the way that they did on the times that we have wrestled than have him not make any contact and the crowd shits all over it.
Yep, for sure.
So yeah. No, I'll wrestle Kevin any day of the week.
Just rewinding back to NXT, how did you actually get in and like get recruited in? I love like those kind of stories because I'm always thinking like, is it Johnny Ace? Who's recruiting these guys? How are they getting in? So how did you get in?
So funny enough, and it ties back into why we're here. Tommy Fierro was helped out a lot when he was a young kid by Bill DeMott. And he rode with Bill to a lot of shows and WWF shows, and Bill kind of took him around and introduced him to people and helped him kind of break in. So when Bill got released from Deep South, Tommy brought Bill in to wrestle for an ISPW show in Freehold. And Bill was sitting there and he was talking to Danny Doring and Little Guido. And I was kind of going over some stuff for my match that night. And I noticed him like covering his mouth, but like talking to them. And I noticed Doring kind of like glancing over at me, and me and him were cool. So like, and we're still best of friends. I'm his daughter's godfather. And he's just like kind of giving me this look out of the side of his eye. Like, maybe, hey, get your ass over here, kid. Like, come on. And so like, I'm, just me being me, I'm not putting it over. So he's kind of like doing it more, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Okay, like we're just like talking through our eyes. And then finally, Bill goes, "Hey, get over here." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sorry," playing dumb.
Yep.
And Bill goes, "What are you doing in your match tonight?" And so I kind of tell him, and he's like, "All right, well, I'm gonna watch it, so don't fuck anything up." And I'm like, "Okay, yes, sir." Shit. But he took the time to give me advice that night and everything, and gave me his email and said, if there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know. I said, okay, yeah, thank you, And then there was really nothing going on, and I was starting to get a little worn out on wrestling, Nothing was happening. I did the first ever Ring of Honor tryout where they signed Mike Bennett, and I forget who else they might have signed from that first one. I think it was definitely maybe Bennett and Taven. But regardless, like, didn't get chosen for that. Taz got me a TNA Dark. That didn't go the way it was supposed to. Didn't get a yes from that. And then I was like, well, shit, I put all this time in and just wanted to wrestle on TV. And then all these TV companies are telling me no. Maybe I made the wrong choice here. And, I just wasn't really feeling good about myself. And I was down on my luck. And I said, and then by that point, Bill had gotten rehired as the head trainer in developmental. And I said, you know what? I got this guy's email. I never used it. I'm sure everybody's blowing him up, but let me talk to him. Let me take one last shot at this before I quit. And I emailed him, and he got back to me maybe 3 minutes later. I was like, oh, what are your stats these days? And I told him. He said, okay, tomorrow, call this person in the office. Tell them that I specifically said for you to call and get booked as an extra. I was like, whoa, what? Okay, thank you. Like, what just happened?
Right.
Because I had been so now just accustomed to rejection. And then this guy was like, yeah, hey, call this person and get booked. And I'm like, you could just call people and get booked? You don't have to send your stuff in to anybody? Like, what the hell's going on here? And I went and got booked as an extra and was not going to call anybody out, but was wrestling somebody who's on the roster in a non-wrestling role. And I wasn't really looking to call much anyway. And this was just like the extra matches while the doors are still closed and there's no audience. And I know they want to see you work on the fly. So like I wasn't really looking to call anything really, but one spot. I wanted to do this one specific heat spot because nobody would do it or have the balls to do it. And I go up to the kid who I know, and I tell him, like, hey, I just want to talk to you about one thing. He goes, whoa, I caught my stuff in the ring. And then I got hot. And then the Matt Bourne came out of me. And we had like 5 minutes, and the bell rang, and I just beat the brakes off him. Not to hurt him, but like my stuff was laid in because I was angry. Because, like, yeah, I know. I call most of my stuff on the fly too, buddy. Like, you know me. Don't try to big league me because you think you have an in here, you know?
Yep.
So that came out. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get fired before I'm even hired. They're gonna kick me out of the building. And William Regal and Scott Armstrong both just gave me like the come here. And I was like, oh, they're mad. They think I beat him up. Oh, shit. And Regal goes, I'll talk to you later, but there's hasn't been that many impressive people that I've seen that have just done what you've done. So you should be very happy with yourself. Go sit over there. I'm like, okay, thank you. And then Scott Armstrong was like, who trained you? Because you got the best footwork I've seen in the last 10 years. It's like, you can't teach somebody footwork like that. And I was like, Matt Bourne. And he was like, this was just the first thing that popped in my head. I was like, Matt Bourne. And he goes, well, that explains it. Go sit down. I'm like, okay, yes, sir. Thank you. And then, like, so now I'm on this whole roller coaster of emotions. And I go to cut a promo in front of Regal. And Matt Stryker was there. And I hadn't met Stryker, but we ran in enough of the same circles where he knew who I was, but wouldn't put it over because he's weird. And he's okay with me saying that because he knows he's weird. And I tell him at least once a week that he's really fucking weird. But yeah, Matt kind of walked up to me because Regal had me cut a promo. I cut it. He loved it. He had me do it again and again and again. And then he went to get one of the writers, which Matt was like, this doesn't happen. Knock it out of the fucking park. I was like, okay. Writer came in the room. I did it again. He loved it. And then Regal goes, I want you back the next time we're in the area next month. You know, call the office, the same person that Bill told me to call, and say that I specifically said for you to be booked on that. And I was like, all right, cool, thank you. And I'm like, what's going on right now?
Right.
And I didn't realize that, you know, it was all the work and time I put in and listening to the guys that came before me. That was just it paying off, you know, and it didn't hit me until the next time around. They were cutting promos again, and I really wanted to cut another promo because I knew how much Regal liked my promo. So I wanted to keep it in his head, you know, like I want to cut a promo. So I went to Stryker, and I'm like, I'm not on the list. How come I'm not on the list? And he looked at me and he said, you spoke enough last time, and now it's time for you to let the people that need to speak for you speak for you.
Oh, wow.
And I went, okay, but can I cut a promo? And so I just went and sat in catering, and Paul Heyman comes over, and can I sit here? I'm like, yeah, can I sit here? He's like, tell me about yourself. And I mentioned Taz, and then he lit up. And then all of a sudden, me and Paul are talking, and he's talking to me like I've known him for 20 years. And then Regal comes and gives me another one of these. I'm like, shit. This better be good news again.
Yeah.
I don't like when he keeps doing this shit because then I think I'm in trouble. And he goes, I just want you to know I got you a tryout. This was in November. He goes, I got you a tryout in February. He goes, I love you at the size you're at, but they're going to run you into the ground. So it might be worth it to drop a couple pounds. I said, okay, no problem. And went down to the tryout. I lost like 40 pounds in that 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. I quit my job. I was working as a clerk in the Brooklyn District Attorney's office, like pushing papers and doing some legal stuff. I quit, got a job at the gym that the strength coach from Taz's school was working at. as a front desk guy so that I could train with him when my shift was over. And then train with him, either at the beginning or end of the shift. And then if it was at the beginning, I would stay extra and just like push the sled and do like just these crazy workouts that he gave me. And it paid off when I had my tryout because, JR was like, well, what if we asked you to get down to 295? And I think I was at like 305. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And Regal stood up and said he dropped a lot of weight from when he was told about this tryout till the actual tryout. So I have no doubt he could lose 10 pounds. It's not a big deal. And he vouched for me. That always meant the world to me. And yeah, that was it. Like, tryout went great. That was where I first met Dusty and Jerry Briscoe. And and that was really it. Like, once that happened, a couple months later, I got a call. Like, hey, you're moving to Florida. Okay, let's go.
And you're in. When did they give you the name and bring you into the Performance Center? Like, how many months after that, when the tryout till actually getting in?
Tryout was in February. I got called in April, and I reported in July as the first class of the Performance Center.
Well, pretty quick. They moved you along.
Yeah.
And they give you the name Bull Dempsey. They say you're going to be Bull Dempsey.
That was all me. I picked that. I came up with that and pushed it through and fought for it.
Well, you're one of the lucky ones because sometimes I hear that they give you a crappy name, you're stuck with it. It's like
it's funny, right? There's all this uproar about Pete Dunne being Butch. Butch was one of the names I put on my list, thinking, "Oh, they'll never use this," but not realizing that Bill DeMott's nickname for his son was Butch. So he loved it, and he kept trying to get me like, "Oh yeah, I think you should be Butch," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to be Butch. I want to be Bull." And he's like, "No, I really think you should be Butch." And I'm like, "I don't want to be Butch. Please don't make me Butch." And so now it's funny that that Pete has it now. But he's so talented, man. That a name isn't going to hold that kid back. He's awesome.
Hey, if you can give a guy named Dolph Ziggler and the guy got it over, anybody can get it. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. I think people are just so overreactive now over nothing. It's like, just stop. Like, you're ruining this for everybody. They're like trying to enjoy it. Like, okay, the name sucks for now, but you know what? Like, the gimmick is cool at least. At least it gives him something. He's not just another wrestler.
Right.
So just let it play out and enjoy it. Everybody needs to go outside for a couple days or something and just relax.
Like Baron Corbin is not the greatest name in the world, but he made it work. You know what I mean? It's just
he made a lot of stuff work, man. He's come a long way, and I'm proud of that guy. We wrestled up and down Florida for a while, and he's really come into his own.
You guys had a good feud there. You had a good run, especially initially in NXT. You had a bit of an undefeated streak at first. The crowd's always chanting "Bull." Did you enjoy the time in NXT? Because it seemed like at first it was getting a nice, good little push.
So, for as much as like when you're in the pressure cooker, you can get down and complain or like just be frustrated with things. At the end of the day, and Robbie Brookside always said this to us, and this really stuck with me a lot through my time there. We had these key passes to get into the door at the PC. And Robbie goes, "Look around." He goes, 80 of you have this key. And there's tens of thousands of people basically lined up outside this door that would stab their mother in the throat to have one. But you all have one. And that kind of always did it for me, of like kind of keeping that perspective of like, yes, some days sucked. Yes, some days we had to do things that were just stupid that we were just doing to do busy work. And yes, like we were like, there was times we got fucked with, but at the end of the day, we were in that top 1%, and even if it's, oh, I want to get called up. Well, look, there's a lot of guys in Major League Baseball that want to play and they're on the bench, but you have a much better chance of seeing the field from the bench than from AAA or AA or single A. So at least you're on the bench. You're next
True.
in line. You're literally right there. So don't get too frustrated with it. Don't let it eat you up like that, you know?
Did you mind Bull Fit when they gave you the Bull Fit gimmick?
No. Because look, with and you know, Kevin and I spoke about this when it happened because a lot of people tried to turn Kevin Owens and I against each other to try to like cause this competition that didn't need to happen. And Kevin and I just kind of like clicked one day. I was like, "Hey, are they doing this to you?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're doing it to you." I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, screw that. That's stupid." He's like, "We're not even the same wrestler." I'm like, "Exactly." Like we both work different styles. We don't look the same because we're heavier guys with beards. We don't have the same body type. Again, we don't work the same style, but we both respect what the other does. And I think that's where people a lot of times are like, "Oh, you must hate Kevin Owens." I don't hate anybody really. I like Kevin. I'm happy. He just signed a big deal, and I couldn't be more happy for him. He's a family man. You know, he was always cool to me. I can't, you know, I'm not going to hate on that guy. It's stupid, and people try to push that so hard. I don't get it. But a lot of guys, I think, in that position, when a guy comes in and takes your spot, but they also had Corbin. So how many ass kickers are you going to have on a show before it's the same thing every segment? So somewhere something has to give. And whether it should have been me or not is what it is. I'm not bitter about it. But a lot of guys in that spot, if they didn't have the equity put in that I did, or, you know, what I put in at the PC or the effort that I made or any of that stuff, any of that equity, if that wasn't there and that was somebody else, they probably would have gotten released instead of being repackaged. And so
That's
I was
true.
very fortunate for Hunter to come to me and say, "Hey, I got this idea. You're going to think I'm nuts, but I think it'll work." And he laid it out for me, and I went, "Yeah, I'm in. Done." Like instantaneous, yes, let's do it. And that was it. We were off to the races. Like, okay, work with Dusty and come up with some stuff. And we did.
With Bull Fit, like, is it one of those things where, like, okay, I'm getting TV time. This is great. I'm going to make it work no matter what. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
mindset.
absolutely. You know, and I had done comedy before, and nobody there knew it. So I think for a lot of people, they thought it was a test to like, oh, let's see if he can be funny. And so I've done this a million times, but they never saw it. They never saw me wrestle as a giant baby smoking a cigar.
Right.
You
Baby
know,
Huey. Yeah.
yeah, like I've done it. Like, okay, easy, let's go. I can do it with my eyes closed. And so, and I think that's why it worked because it came so easy to me that it was so easy for the fans to invest in.
Overall, though, were you happy with the time in NXT, and were you surprised when you got the release?
I was really surprised. I thought I was getting a raise.
Wow.
I told that story before. I thought I was either getting called up or getting a raise because Santino had just been forced to retire with his neck injury. And so there was that open comedy spot on the main roster. And Vince loves self-deprecating humor. And here's Bullfit.
Right.
Like, yeah, of course this is going to get called up. Are you kidding? I didn't think that. I was still kind of pessimistic about it. But everybody else is like, dude, you're going. Like, that's it. Like, there's no way. There's no way this doesn't. And I'm like, yeah, all right, well, we'll see. And sure enough, I get called in the office, and I'm like, oh wow, like this actually going to happen? And then it was, oh well, you know, I'm sure you know why I'm here. It was from Canyon Seaman, who I love. He was always good to me. So I think you know why I'm here. And I'm like, am I getting called up? And he goes, no, as if like I should have already known I was there to get released. And I was like, oh, this will be fun. And he's like, what? And I go, nope, let's go get this done. And we had a conversation, and it was a good talk because we both respected each other a lot. And I was given kind of the luxury of not having to be escorted to my locker to clean it out. I was just kind of allowed to hang out for a little bit and pack my stuff up and leave on my own accord, which I was really grateful for. And then I got in the car, made a booking email, sent out a tweet, And that was the end of that. That was it.
Wow, pretty shocking. You think you might get called up and they release you? That's kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, but you know what? It's happened to him. Look at all the releases that have happened recently. It happens. It's business. It's not something to sit there and cry over. You just, hey, without them, I wouldn't still be able to make a living off of wrestling. Without that platform to put my name out there, I wouldn't still be here. Geez, 6 years later. That still feels like yesterday. That's what's so crazy to me. But I wouldn't be here 6 years later, still being able to make a living off this. And it's because they gave me that platform. So how can you be bitter about that? All right, it didn't go the way you wanted it to. Dust yourself off. Try again. But I don't know. I guess it's just different mindsets, and I'm not afraid to fail. And I think that's what separates me from a lot of people.
That's a good thing, though. And great advice for people out there. Don't be afraid to fail.
Never. You can't. You can't be afraid of anything. You just got to go get it. Go take it.
Now, as we hit the wind down, we head towards the finish here. What's next for you? What else do you got coming down the pike?
Your guess is as good as mine, but I've been recently getting into some acting stuff that I'll be announcing soon. But, I'm not trying to kind of have that thing of, I'm going to get into acting now because I was in WWE, or I'm going to be the next Rock. Like, no, like I enjoy doing it. If something comes of it, great. But if not, I'm never going to not be a wrestler. Unless I can't walk or God forbid get hurt, or, just knock on wood there. I'm always, until I stop loving it, I'm not going to stop doing it. And I'm never going to take no for an answer. Nobody can stop me from doing what I want to do. Nobody's ever going to stop me from doing anything that I want to achieve. And who knows? I'm still young enough to go chase it one more time. So, there's a lot out there right now. So don't be surprised if this next year looks pretty good.
And of course, ISPW 325 Totalwood, New Jersey. You'll be there against HC Loke. Yeah. ISPWWrestling.com for all ticket information. Should be a good one. ISPW usually is, right? I mean, it should be a good one.
Always a blast. And you never know who's going to show up. Tommy always books surprises. So Carlito was a surprise last month. That was cool. It's good to see him again.
That's a good one. I'm hearing there might be some legends in the area that day. So
I'm hearing the same.
Yeah, so pretty cool. But before we let you go, give us all the plugs where everybody can find you, social media and otherwise.
At Real Bull James on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not really much of a Twitterer anymore. It's becoming too much of a cesspool, but you can find me on Instagram. Facebook is Bull James. I'm on Cameo, and actually right now, any cameos through March 21st. Sorry. Any cameos from now through March 21st, all the proceeds are going to Ukraine relief, and I'm not taking a single cent. It's all going there. So come on by and get yourself a cameo and help a good cause.
Great stuff as always, Bull. Thank you so much for all the time. I know you're super busy, so thank you. Appreciate all the time.
Hey man, thank you. It was great to catch up with you, and I can't wait to see you again.